Hello pandas and other scrap enthusiasts. This video is about the truck. How I blew up the engine, how we figured out how to fix it, how much that actually cost. It's a bit of a story with heroes and villains and I at the front of it, trying my best to be savvy at being poor. Because let's face it, vehicles are expensive. Labor is expensive. Parts, tools, experience, none of these things come cheap, but when you don't have much money, you need to figure it out anyway, and that's exactly what we did. To set the stage, this story began sometime last year. When exactly is hard to nail down. It could have been when my temperature gauge randomly slammed to the top of its range and I checked and discovered nearly no coolant in the reservoir. Or it could have been when I was warming the truck up after a friend's birthday dinner and I noticed that the exhaust smoke was a lot thicker and whiter than any of the other vehicles in the parking lot. Or maybe it was when I was leaving my house and I found the truck started shaking and losing most of its power when trying to go over 40 kilometers an hour. It took me a little while to catch on, but these were warning signs of neglected maintenance, and I was cruising my way towards the consequences of my own actions. A quick Google search and a few calls to some more experienced friends suggested the most likely culprit was a blown head gasket due to overheating. Now, I permitted myself the luxury of a few days of denial, but in my heart I knew the truth. This was going to be expensive. Now, normally I do all my own car work with the guidance of my more experienced friends and YouTube, but this job was a fair bit more ambitious than anything I'd ever tackled, so I decided to treat myself and hire a professional. I was busy and I wanted to get the truck back in order as fast as possible, so I called a friend with an auto shop who unfortunately was backed up with at least a month's worth of work, but he recommended me a shop across the street from his, where I promptly delivered the truck. Now, this is where things rapidly got worse and worse. I'm not interested in wasting time or energy complaining, but it is relevant to the story that trusting this shop and its owner with my vehicle was a huge mistake due to his complete lack of accountability, pride, or motivation. What was quoted as a few weeks turned into months, because unless I was standing in front of the cash register, I ceased to exist to him. They inspected the engine and confirmed that one bank of cylinders had blown its gasket, then promptly parked the truck, not on the grounds, but out around the corner on the road in this out-of-the-way industrial park. And I, fool that I was, patiently waited for the call that they assured me would be coming in a few days. Now, I'm not a big fan of this part of the story, so I'm going to glaze over it, but over the course of these few months where my truck was there, 3 things happened. 1. They eventually did start disassembly, but stopped once they discovered that the rear timing chain tensioner had given up, allowing the timing chain to flail about and shatter the plastic guide cassette. Now, this particular repair on this particular vehicle would require complete removal of the engine, adding over 20 hours of labor to the bill, bringing the total north of $5,000, possibly as high as $8,000. And 2. In the time it spent neglected and ignored out on the road, thieves molested it for parts, destroying one door lock, the ignition cylinder, and stealing one of 2 catalytic converters, while damaging various other parts with the saw where they attempted to get the second catalytic converter. And 3. It became clear that this particular shop should not be trusted in any professional capacity. And after a shouting match with the owner, where he bounced between hiding in the back and coming out and swearing at me and threatening to have his boys assault me and throw me into the street, I recovered my broken, disassembled truck and had it towed back home. Things were looking bleak. I was already out $414 for towing and labor, and the truck was in far worse shape than before. Hiring a professional was now way out of budget. I could buy 2 trucks for that much. I had 3 options. I could sell what truck I had left for parts and scrap and shop around for something else. Or I could pull the engine at home and rebuild it myself with help. Do the head gasket and the timing chain and patch up what damage the thieves had done. Or I could hunt around for a complete engine and do a straight swap. At this point, I'm wondering if I even really need a truck. maybe I could just pivot the channel and focus on small stuff. But then, a ray of hope. On the faraway lands of British Columbia shone a gently folded, low-mileage 2007 Ford Ranger. I decided that this would be my truck's salvation, a parts truck complete with everything I would need. We would take the engine, the exhaust, the ignition, and most importantly, have parts left over to sell to bring our total cost down. As confident as I was, however, I couldn't do it alone. I had never done a vehicle repair this ambitious, and I had neither the equipment nor the experience. And Glenn from Alberta Small Haul was the first to step up when I needed help. He used his big, beautiful truck and trailer to expertly collect the little black heap of scrap all the way from Kimberley, BC, and deliver it for a bargain of a fee. Thank you again, Glenn. And I now had everything I needed. I'd already spent $3,000 for the privilege of having 2 broken trucks on my yard, but the solution was now within reach. Now, for but a brief moment, I was considering lifting the bed and the cab off of the white truck and transplanting them onto the black one, but that would take more hands and equipment than we had available, so we stuck with the engine swap plan. Now, I say we because the truth is, I'm pretty useless when it comes to vehicles. This only became possible because my friend David was willing to rescue me. He's the brains and the busted knuckles behind all the actual work in this project. And after many tiresome hours with awkward contortions and mostly functional tools, he did it, and he made it look easy. He pulled 2 4-liter single overhead cam Ford engines and installed a complete 140,000 kilometer engine, along with new exhaust, new timing chain tensioners, new gaskets, seals, filters, and an all-aluminum body thermostat housing. Oh, plus a rekeyed ignition cylinder. It was thrilling. We were in the home stretch. The tension was thick as we turned the key for the first time in 8 months. Ha-ha! Whoa, she's got life! She's got life!
Nope, stop.
And $50 worth of brand new oil spilled all over the floor. This was disheartening and overshadowed the project for days. The leak was coming from the new chain tensioner, and I tried many different arrangements of old and new crush washers, as well as different chain tensioners from more expensive and reputable brands, but I was at a loss. Nothing I did helped the leak in any way. It was a complete dead end. And then I remembered one other friend who had mentioned in passing at a barbecue that if I needed some help on the Ranger, to give him a call. Well, I hope he wasn't saying it just to be nice, because that's exactly what I had to do. I messaged him and he rolled in the next day. His work as a heavy-duty mechanic empowered his greasy fingers with the knowledge that this chain tensioner was not threading in straight. The head of the bolt was angled by a few thousandths, indicating that we'd cocked up the aluminum housing and were cross-threading the thing. With the threat of having to pull the entire thing apart and throw more money at it hanging heavy in the air, Chell applied his heavy-duty in-the-field moonshot technique of aggressively cross-threading the cuss out of the thing at what was probably the right angle in order to re-thread the aluminum back to what was hopefully factory. It was a terrifying gambit, and it actually worked. After 8 long, arduous months of challenges and costs and tools and surprises and learning, my little scrap wagon was finally back to life. And let me tell you, the sounds of that little engine roaring back to life without any fluid spilling out anywhere was glorious. She sounds amazing. And I was, kind of grumpy about the project the whole way through. But the satisfaction of actually seeing it through and fixing it rather than throwing the thing out and just buying somebody else's neglected problem vehicle was so fulfilling. But was it worth it? Well, let's have a look at the numbers. $3,014 to get the junk to my house. Plus parts from Rock Auto and fluids and incidentals and labor, because friends don't work for free, bring total spend out of pocket to $5,490. $5,500. Sort of a lot more than I expected at first. But how much can we reclaim? Now, I could have spent the time pulling individual parts off of the donor truck and sold the trans and the diff and the T-case and the lights and the seats and the whole... But at this point, I wanted my yard back and I wanted a quick sale. So I sold the entire thing to somebody who was rebuilding a different Ranger and wanted the transmission for $800. And yes, I could have gotten more, but he showed up with cash and a trailer. Done deal. Sounds great. And the engine sat for a bit, but I was eventually able to find someone who was interested in rebuilding it, who paid me $200. So, $1,000 back in our pocket already, and that brings our total below the low estimate of the shop. And that would not have included 2 OEM catalytic converters at $1,000 a pop. But we still have a little icing on top. The original radiator, which from this angle kind of looks like where these problems all began. Plus a couple pieces of cast aluminum. And the piece that will likely make the biggest difference, the one remaining catalytic converter. Now this one is, it's in bad shape, and I know that does affect the value. See, I've got a little Ziploc bag in here because it was crumbling. It was not okay. A lot of the material inside was getting really melty and clogging things up. Yeah, it stopped working right a long time ago. So that's one of the reasons why the truck probably runs better now. But this piece, it's not going to be $500. Look, it's tiny. But we're going to go find out just how much, because this part's important. Alright, we're back. That was a little disappointing. We got $8.50 for all the aluminum and the catalytic converter. Rhodium is way down, platinum and palladium are down as well, so that catalytic converter is worth $45 today. Yeah, $44.90 minus $53 is still... I was hoping it was going to be worth a couple $100. That's okay, so I didn't sell it. I'm hanging on to it. Maybe we'll see the price recover. But honestly, I don't think it's going to change a whole... That's not this video. So did we make the right decision fixing it in this way? Well, it's hard to say. Maybe if I sold the truck in the beginning for like $2K-ish and had the $4,500 that I ended up spending on this, then bought a truck for $6,500, would I be ahead? Or would I just have another money pit bleeding me dry? We'll never know. Now, if I hadn't taken this job to that washed up has-been and hired David from the start, I probably wouldn't have spent more than $2,000. Well, maybe $2,500, because I still would have needed a radiator and a head gasket and a hoist and a timing chain rebuild kit and a machinist to flatten the head, which was almost definitely warped. And I still would have had an engine with almost twice as many kilometers on it and a pair of cats which were totally cooked. So I guess if I knew then what I know now, I would have done things differently and saved some cash. In fact, if I'd been paying attention, this only would have cost me a radiator and a bottle of coolant. But we're way past that now. So instead, I'm gonna girl math my way around it, and honestly, $4,500 is a bargain price for what I got done, and I am choosing to be happy with it. And it was only possible because of the kindness and generosity of some great friends, as well as many of you. So, thank you for that. Because at the end of the day, I don't know what I'm doing. But I learned one thing. Check your fluids. Thanks so much for watching. I would love to hear about your most expensive vehicle fails in the comments. That would make me feel a lot better. And look forward to all these scrap and trash projects we have coming up now that all the equipment is back in working order. I'll see you there. Leave it better than you found it, and keep doing the thing.